welcome on longtime esports talent, Call of Duty veteran, and commentator for the CDL, Benson. Buddy, how's it going today?
Good, man. Good. I'm excited. I really want to talk some Call of Duty with you. I know that this is probably going to be one of the longer episodes, so apologies to everyone on the backroom staff that's make this show possible. But dude, I feel like there's a ton of Call of Duty that we can talk about right now. There's a lot going on, and I'm excited to be able to talk to you, man. How's your day going? That's the important question. How are you doing today?
Well, I appreciate that. Things are going good. First day back in the Frontier Communications studio, which I'm super happy about. It's been some time since we've been here, so it's planned to be a great day, and I'm excited for the future. Of different shows, different things that we got going on here. But as I was kind of prepping for this one, Ben, I started to think back about how long that you've been doing this for. Right? How many years has it been since you started casting?
I'm like a grandpa. Why we gotta start off with that? No, it's been a long time, man. I started off the early part of MW3. So, I mean, we're going back almost 10 years, I guess. It's probably around about like 8 or 9. But yeah, dude, I've been doing this for a really, really long time. Obviously, predominantly Call of Duty. I've dabbled with other games here and there throughout my journey, as I feel like most commentators do. But yeah, it's been a long, long time. And it's awesome to see like where Call of Duty is now, considering where it was when I first started. And of course, before me, there was others that led the way. And you look at your Hastros, your Fwizzes, those guys. I mean, they truly, truly led the way so that, people like myself can be blessed enough to have a job for as long as I have.
Because people kind of forget, right? I mean, esports commentary back then wasn't nearly, even a fraction of how common that it is now. I almost feel like whenever you wanted to be a commentator back then, it was like, hey, I wanted to play, and then there was an opportunity, and I kind of took that. Were you competitor first in COD, or was it always commentary for you?
So I have a very funny story about this, because people always ask, right? It's the number one question you get asked is, how did you get into this?
Sure.
And I feel like people expect the answer to be, well, I studied, I did some, stuff at college with actual sport. It's never the answer. The reality of the situation is, MW3 came around. Obviously, I played Call of Duty my entire life. I thought I was the best player in the world. Let me tell you, I thought I was incredible. I was actually, and this is a true story, the #1 domination player on the public leaderboards for about 2 months. So I really, really thought I was good. Then I ended up in a pro players like 8s lobby almost. I remember Swanee was in there, Black, a couple of old school European fans may remember a couple of those names. And I got absolutely destroyed. Absolutely, dude. The words I can't even say was how bad I got put in the dirt. And I very quickly came to terms with the fact that the actual professional players are significantly better than me. And not just like, they are way, way, way better. But I love Call of Duty. I love esports. I wanted to find a way in. I love trying to make people laugh. I love talking. And it felt like commentary may be the natural transition for me. Luckily enough, I sent out like 100 emails. I got 1 response. So I was given a shot. And well, now here we are.
Be honest, whenever you were kind of back in your heyday, an example or a current pro player that matches your style from back then, and any players that match Benson's play from back in the day.
You know what? Honestly, I'd probably say Rambo Ray.
Oh, okay.
I'm not even kidding. I think Ray would be a good example. I love to try and be a leader on teams, and I like to think outside the box. I was never going to be a top slayer ever. I was more a communicator, and I'm more an educator. Like even now, like whenever I'm streaming, people will come in and, how can I get better if we're playing 10s? Can you just give me a little bit of advice here and there? And I'll notice things that players are doing wrong and how they can just get a little bit better. So I'd say more of a Rambo Ray, to be honest. Never necessarily flashy, but Ray's accomplishments throughout his career speak for himself. So if I had to compare myself to anyone, I'll pick Ray.
Ray had a pretty good experience this weekend, right? Winning 6K in Warzone. I think Ray's pretty happy right now. I haven't got a chance to see him walking around yet, but I'm sure I'll have that conversation soon. One of my most memorable commentating moments from you actually comes from the grand finals of the first ever COD Champs back in 2013. You had to only be 20 or 21 years old back then?
That was actually a very interesting year for me because, like I said, I started the year prior. So I had very, very inexperienced. It was the first big world championship. I know there'd been an XP before that, but the actual story behind why I actually even ended up casting that is fascinating in itself. I wasn't supposed to. The plan was never for me to actually do that. The big issue was it was supposed to be, I say issue, with Fwiz and Hastro, right? They were the staple pair at that time. Mm-hmm. But for many people that know Hastro and have, worked with Hastro throughout the years, he always has hated calling over his team. He never enjoyed it. He never loved commentating, and especially like a final, like he would be nervous, et cetera, et cetera. At that time too, first ever world championship. So Hastro, who was supposed to be doing it, was like, no, I don't want to do it. It doesn't feel right. And he kind of passed that off, and he recommended, I believe, or so the story I've heard is, he recommended for me to do it with Wiz. And having only been casting for less than a year, I've done a ton of stuff on Black Ops 2. My knowledge of Black Ops 2 is insane. He was kind enough to pass on the metaphorical torch, if you will, even though I was so inexperienced. And looking back at it, I can't believe I was able to do that at that time. But truly, that was probably one of the best series I've ever casted. It was so fun, man. Like, I'll go back and watch it every now and then. And yes, I know there's going to be comments. Oh, you sounded so different back then. What happened to your accent? That's a whole different story. It's long gone. It's disappeared. But honestly, that was a fantastic time.
Something else to mention when it comes down to that particular grand final, right? The 2013 Champs Grand Final, the last player who was actually involved in that, who was starting in the CDL, was Karma. And I'm sure that that retirement had to hit you pretty hard. Do you have a favorite Karma story that you can share with us?
Oh, favorite Karma story. I mean, there's been a fair few. The one thing I will say is Damon Barlow is one of the nicest, most down-to-earth people in the CDL. I've had the privilege of working with him on the desk a couple of times. It's just guest appearances. He was never obviously a staple analyst. He was too busy playing and winning world championships, to be completely honest with you. But every time you see him, he smiles. And it's funny because we talked about his retirement, and I know as the CDL, we had this package, and like, it was so strange for me because every time I was talking about it, I don't want to say emotional. I was thinking about all these amazing moments that he has brought to our esport.
Sure.
At the end of the day, I love this esport. Like, I breathe it. Like, Call of Duty it's my jam, right? To be completely frank, and to have someone who's been so important to our esport retire, dude, it sucks, especially considering how important to our esport he was. 3 rings, one of the most winningest players. You could argue the GOAT if you really want. I mean, the guy's just great. But as for a favorite story, I would more say favorite moment, I guess, and it would be the Ninja Defuse. I'm sure as soon as they say Ninja Defuse in camera, everyone knows what I'm thinking about. Obviously against Unite. Nameless was the one that planted the bomb. Don't ever let Ant forget about it. He was the one that planted it. S&D meltdown. It was more so his reaction, right? And what I mean by that is a player of his ability to just be so cool, calm, and collected, go for a Ninja Defuse at that point in the tournament. Proofy's obviously the one that stands up. He starts giving it all that. But Damon just kind of sat there and he just smiles. And it's just like, that to me epitomizes Damon. He's just like cheeky in a sense, right? He's just going to do something. He's just going to like smirk, and you're just going to have to deal with it. The reaction was so small, but overall, man, I'm going to miss Damon a lot. I think he's so important. I hope he finds a position. If he truly does decide to retire, fingers crossed he comes back next year. But if he does, I hope he finds a position somewhere in the league, whether it's coaching, whether it's even on a bench, whether it's an analyst. I don't really know what it could be, but I hope we see more Damon, because I think it's a shame that a player as influential as that to our esport can just kind of retire. I know he streams and all that, but I still think he should be a part of Call of Duty esports.
Yeah, it always feels like there could be something more to it, which time will kind of tell with that. But it's obviously hard to see legends like that kind of leave the game, just because obviously Call of Duty has such rich personalities, but at the same time that does allow for many new young guns to start to enter the fold. And one of those players happens to be Awakening, right? Who since joining the Florida Mutineers have managed to go undefeated, now winning back-to-back titles. Ben, what's your reaction to this guy Awakening in the debut that he's had? I
mean, one of the best debuts we've seen, right? It really is. I think the only other comparable debut is Simp, to be completely honest. You look at his first event, didn't win, but statistically, I mean, wow, right? Just wow. That will forever be remembered as one of the best rookie years of all time. And Awakening is kind of on par to maybe do just that, right? He's won his first 2 events. I mean, I know you can go back and look at Miracles from way back in Black Ops 2, and you can say kind of similar thing. His first couple of events were wins. Now times have changed, though, and I think what Awakening is doing is truly impressive. However, he isn't doing it to the same style Simp was. Simp was doing it by taking over, right? You look at some of the stats he had. He was statistically the best in every game mode at the time. Like, he was, I won't say hard carrying, but I truly believe if you took Simp out of the equation, that United team back then wouldn't have had that same success. Whereas now with Awakening, you can look at Skies, for example. He's dropping like a 1.4. Like, he's been an absolute animal. Pharaoh's been fantastic. The whole team is gelling. But I think the funny thing for me, LandO, is if you think that Florida go on to win their next event, and then they win the next event, and then we get to champs. I mean, if they win that, there can be no argument. Awakening will be the best rookie we've ever seen in Call of Duty esports. You will take that title away from Simp, whether the FaZe fans want to accept that or not. Doesn't really matter. The statistics don't lie. He's been a fantastic asset to that team.
Oh, absolutely. I think that has to be undeniable. And I feel like I saw one of two reactions. I'll say this. I saw actually two reactions in general after the Mutineers won the Paris home series, right? It was either shock because of how impressed people were, or it was distaste because of the fact that it's considered online. How much weight do you put in the online versus LAN conversation?
It's interesting, right? And I know players are going to have different opinions. I know coaches, that everyone is going to have a different opinion on this. I'll start with the brutal reality is there can be no argument of Florida's success. The unfortunate hand that CDL has been given is stuff needs to be played online, right? Just due to COVID. So there is no other, we should be playing on that, blah, blah, blah. That just doesn't exist, right? So Florida are doing what they have been, or Florida are playing the hand they've been dealt, which is, again, unfortunate for us all. It is online. But let's not forget, Florida did have success on LAN. This isn't like they were, absolutely awful, bottom of the league. They beat Huntsman. They got to a final. They were doing okay. Now, did they have the same success? No. So you have to kind of debate whether you think that success is mainly due to online, or is it due to a roster change, or is it maybe a combination of both? Now, I look at that team and you see players who have traditionally played maybe a little better online. You could maybe argue if you really, really want to, it's a bit of a stretch. You look at players who haven't had massive success on LAN. Sure, I'll give you that. But the game is different than we've seen in the past. And I think it's a massive discredit or a massive disservice, if you will, to discredit them straight off the rip, right? Just say, oh, yeah, online, you never do it on LAN. Well, we don't know that. All we know is they are the best team in the game. And I think the main reason this happened is actually, ironically enough, due to the fashion of which they beat Atlanta FaZe. Is that 3-0, LandO? I mean...
Oh, yeah.
Like, a lot of people had Atlanta FaZe as the best team in the game. A lot of people still do, right? They got dismantled. I mean, absolutely dismantled. They almost reached 250 points in the domination. That's not normal. Like, that is... I mean, you saw the heart with the frowny face. Like, FaZe were trolling themselves at that point, right? There was nothing they could do. So yes, of course, there's always going to be an argument, right? There's always going to be an argument about online versus LAN. I think if you go back and you look at the past, whenever there's been online leagues and you compare them to the results that you see at events, for the most part, they've been pretty spot on. You look at the online pro leagues back in Call of Duty Ghosts, etc. Yes, there is always going to be outliers. There are always going to be players with poor internet connection. I do want to think that going into a franchise league, teams will have done their best to provide everyone with the best possible internet, they can.
Right.
Yes, then there's the argument about servers here and there, sure. But for me, I still think Florida is the best team in the game right now. And I think it's mainly due to their play style. I think it's mainly due to the things they're doing inside the game. Yes, they'll win the occasional gunfight, which maybe they wouldn't on LAN, but hell, so does everyone, right? Everyone, whenever you play Call of Duty Online, experiences that same thing. You cannot tell me, and I refuse to believe this, that FaZe was losing all of those gunfights in that Game 3 domination because it was online. That's just simply not true. Like, I refuse to believe that. So yeah, I guess the overall answer to that question is there's a little bit of a factor, but still, I don't think it's a big enough factor, which makes me think they're not the best team in the game. I think a lot of people in the community should realize that and actually respect Florida for what they've been able to achieve. First team with a three-peat back-to-back. It's now about consistency. Can they keep that up for the rest of the year?
Right, and that's kind of like the main conversation that a lot of people like to have. Or I'll say this, whenever a team is seeing success, the main question is always like, when's it going to end, right? When is it going to kind of come to a close? And I feel like the conversation, as you mentioned, is so specific on when is it going to end rather than kind of enjoying the moment or rather kind of showing respect for the moment. But I very much am kind of on the side as well of like, you know what? The current worldwide circumstances are making us be online. So are they the best team in the world? Right. Yeah, because the world currently does not allow for anything better. So it's definitely an interesting argument. I agree that there can be kind of claims against it, but it's definitely shaking up the CDL in a way that I'm very excited about. And speaking of excitement, one thing that has kind of really got me interested due to the fact of the recent play from the Mutineers and Awakening specifically is that we can actually have a conversation now about Rookie of the Year. Ben, if you were given a vote today, who gets the award?
Ooh, All right. So before we discuss this, I have to know, what are your parameters for Rookie of the Year? Now, what I mean by that are we looking at accomplishments? Are we looking at the main effect they've had on the team? Are we looking at statistics? When you're giving that award out, LandO, what are you kind of basing this award on?
I'll say this. If you were facing off against another rookie who was in this conversation and they have a championship and you don't, unless you have had the utmost and unbelievable, run of constant second place finishes, being the best player on your team, I that's the only situation of which I would maybe give a player who doesn't have accomplishments Rookie of the Year over someone who doesn't. So I think accomplishments has to be there. I think you kind of hit the nail on the head. I think impact has to be felt in some capacity in terms of what you've done for that team, what that team was like before you got there, which kind of makes the conversation for Shotzzy a little more interesting because we don't know what Dallas would have looked like without him. But yeah, I think stats have to be included in some capacity. I think you have to have some accomplishments in some way. And I think the impact has to be felt. I think those three are kind of three of maybe a few others if I had some time to think about it. But I think those three have to be brought up in the conversation, or at least used as stipulations to give someone the Rookie of the Year.
Right. Because of that, I think Awakening kind of has to be in the running, right?
Sure.
Won his first couple of events. Statistically, he's been good. Hasn't been the best on the team, sure. Has he massively improved the team? That's obviously up for debate. They were okay. Now they look like the best team in the world. So I'd argue, yes, he has. Then I look at Shotzzy. He would actually be the second player I would look at. And I would say, well, I mean, the kid came in this year. You go back to the London Open, he faced an entire crowd against him. Yeah. And he still kind of came out on top. I think as an individual, he's shown you just his raw ability. I mean, the tweet he kind of put out with the video of his movement. Oh my God, was his movement? See, even my dog agrees that Shotzzy's movement was absolutely incredible. Like he's like a glitch. I will be honest. At the start of the year, I had my reservations about him. I watched a couple of gameplays. I watched him in some scrims just online, stream and whatnot. And I was like, is he going to be the real deal? Is he going to fit the spot? In the beginning of the season, I don't think he did. I think he's grown into that role very, very well. And now I question, well, how good would they be without him? And the one thing that really, really kind of cements him as a main runner for Rookie of the Year in my mind is something that myself and Chance talked about actually last weekend. When you watch him play and you watch other players of his same play style, when I say same play style, I mean, those young, very fast, up in your face type of players. A lot of those very quick players have a massive problem slowing down. They have a big problem understanding the situation. Yeah. Normally it's just so, spawn, push up on the thumbstick and go, right? And then they'll kill one or two people and then they'll die. And they'll do the same thing. The difference with Shotzzy is he's really, really intelligent about the game. And either I credit this to Krim, Clay, maybe even Rambo. I'm unsure about the effect he's had since joining the team. But someone has taught him the main concepts of Call of Duty, about when to slow down, about when are those important moments where maybe just lying down, blocking spawns for 5 or 6 seconds is going to be crucial. And it's clicked. And I refuse to believe now that it's someone telling him every single time. I think he's doing it based off natural instinct. And because of that, I've been so impressed, LandO. Like some of the plays he's made have given Dallas like 20 seconds. He's done so without even shooting a gun. Yeah. Like it's been very, very good to watch. So for me, they're the two front runners. Yes, you can maybe make an argument for Matt Meltz. Sure. But I mean, has New York won anything? No. So then I look at that category I asked before and I'm like, well, hard to give Rookie of the Year to someone who hasn't won anything. Sure. As opposed to Shotzzy and Awakening. But I think our answer, excitingly enough, will come in the next like 4 or 5 weeks. When we're getting ready for champs or maybe post champs, that's when we can really answer that debate. And I think the reality is which one of those two is going to have a bigger impact with the time still to go.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I'm excited to see exactly how the race kind of continues. And who knows, maybe in some capacity, depending on how champs plays out, maybe someone else can kind of get their name up in the conversation. True. It will not be easy by any stretch of the imagination, but I thought, maybe 3 events ago, it was not going to be easy or even possible for anybody to catch Shotzzy just because he had won 2 championships and no other rookie had really been able to do that. And now we see what Awakening has done. But it's going to be interesting, but kind of more quickly on a somber note, before I let you go, I have to get your thoughts on what we saw from OGLA this weekend. 1-6 in maps. They suffer the worst hardpoint loss in CDL history. 250 to 49 versus the Ultra. Not that anybody really played well, but Dashy finished with a 0.68 KD. And considering the amazing hype that was around this guy last season and even the year before that, a 0.68 KD. Ben, what needs to be done with Optic right now?
I mean, where do we begin? I feel like
that may need to be a totally new segment, just a video specifically on that.
This is a whole episode. It really is. I mean, just to kind of touch on him, I will say going into this weekend, I told all of the production staff, and I'll put my hand up and say I was completely wrong. I said, I don't know why. I have a gut feeling they might do pretty well. They've been on the uptrend. They've been on an upswing. Things are looking good. Traditionally now, this is where Slasher will turn into a beast. Him as an individual statistically has been phenomenal. He's been making the right plays. He has been playing very, very well. So credit to Slasher. I think he deserves that. Completely wrong. I know Maven agreed. He kind of expected Optic to play a little bit better. Not the case. I tweeted out something had to change. I got a response from Slasher saying you wish you could say something. Obviously, there's stuff going on in the back room. Kenny was very vocal. He said, yeah, it's practice. We're not practicing as we should be. So then, obviously, the rumors start to go. We've already had the rumors about Dashy in practice earlier on in the year about his commitment. We also discussed at great length, what is it like for him to no longer be a fan favorite, right? Like when he started his career, he had a lot of hype and he joined the most reputable and biggest fan base in Call of Duty esports. Everyone's chanting Bruce every single time he got a kill. Like that must be an amazing feeling. Mm-hmm. You completely take that away. How does he mentally respond to that? That's a big question for me that I look at. Because this year he's been non-existent. Like, let's just be completely frank, right? Last year he was the best player in the world at times. He truly was. This year, I mean, he doesn't, like, if I'm honest, he does not deserve that spot. He does not deserve a starting spot. Whether there's changes that happen, whether he buckles down and improves. I mean, I'm a firm believer, LandO, of it's never too late. Okay. I think if they really buckle down and they start actually getting good quality practice and really, really going hard, they have to realize that, yes, maybe the game doesn't suit them. Yes, maybe they don't enjoy the game, whatever the case is. But there's 3 events left and champs. It's not too late. You can still make a miracle run. I mean, Jesus, EG won champs, right? With Patty P. No one saw that happening. But they did. Mm-hmm. It just shows you champs is a magical weekend where anything can happen. And I think the players need a wake-up call. Adachi, if you do watch this, I'm not being rude at all. I've spoken to you individually. I love you. I think you're a great guy. I think you're a phenomenal Call of Duty player. But you got to improve. And to the Optic organization and management, you let go of your coach. Stuff hasn't got better. Let's not forget about that.
Yeah.
I think overall there either needs to be a big change where they pull out the checkbook and they just go after whoever the hell they can get. That's a debate in itself. Roster movements this year have been very, very slow for obvious reasons. You don't want to give your competition all your key assets, which I completely agree. It's franchising now. Things have changed. But something has to change with that team, man. It really does. It's depressing because they're all really good people. Like they're great people. They're fantastic Call of Duty players. And I mean, they're getting beat in record pace in Hardpoint. Like, LandO, if I told you that stat at the start of the year, I said Optic Gaming is going to have the fastest defeat in Hardpoint, you would have laughed at me at the start. You would have called me insane. You would have thought I was drunk at the time of making that type of prediction. Yeah, here we are, where that team just is not clicking. I really firmly believe it's a point of pull out the checkbook of your Optic management and just try and get whoever the hell you can. I think you've reached that point where players need to be benched and the management needs to be held accountable, because when you look at sports, never really the players that are the first ones that get blamed, right? It's normally the management. And I think franchising is kind of shifting that for Call of Duty. I think you have to look at the backroom staff who are making these decisions, whether the players have called for roster changes, whatever's going on behind closed doors. I don't know. I can only speculate. I can only give my opinion on the matter. I might be completely wrong. If I am completely wrong, I apologize. I'd love to know, and I'll make a formal apology and just completely reset everything I just said. But from where I'm sat right now, looking at that team, I mean, yeah, it's not good, LandO. It's not good at all.
What do you think the odds are that we see Maven predict OGLA to win champs?
Very high. Very high. And honestly, I don't think it would be a ridiculous thing to do, because that's one of those predictions. And as a caster, you have these moments where you can predict the most outlandish thing. If it's right, you look like an absolute genius. If it's wrong, no one really cares because they knew you were kind of going out on a limb. So it's such a safe prediction. And he called them at the beginning of the year to be one of the best. We all did. Yeah. And for them to have a good run at Champs Weekend, I could see it happening. It isn't ridiculous. I thought they were going to have a good run last weekend. I think it all comes down to practice. Kenny said it best. The players on the team are saying it the best. They need to practice. And I hope whoever it is on that team can figure it out. They can knuckle down and hopefully make a good run, not only for themselves, but for their fan base, for all the neutrals out there, for Call of Duty Esports. They're representing one of the biggest organizations our esport has ever seen. Yes, of course, it's not ran by the same management, but regardless of the fact, it's a big name in our esport, and so far they're not doing that name justice.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Well, that's Benson, veteran esports talent commentator for the CDL. Ben, thanks so much for taking the time to join me today.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me. It was good fun. I always love talking Call of Duty. I always love talking with you. Let's do it again sometime.
Absolutely. We definitely need to do that.